So, welcome everybody to the Indian Invasion podcast. This is a new podcast that we started. Today is the first episode. This is your co host Akhilesh Gannavarapu with Daniel Isaac, the founder of All India Mixed Martial Arts Association, as well as the vice president of GAMMAF. Am I saying that correctly now, Daniel?
Good job, Akhilesh.
All right, and with us we have Srikant Shekhar, the man that defeated Rajinder Singh Meena during MFN 1. Thank you so much, Srikant, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, so first things first, Srikant, I need to ask you this. We saw your conversation very recently. One thing that was interesting was when you called out Jason Ramesh Solomon right after the fight, he was very polite to you. He gave you a lot of he gave you your due credit. Even inside the cage and outside the cage, he kept telling me that you won national tournaments in boxing, kickboxing, BJJ. He gave you your due credit. But in the last week itself, his tune changed. What did you think about that?
So, as you say, he was not expecting me to call out because, I think he was not aware of it or what. But then, as I say, I'm on a mission and I have a lot of guys in my mind already. So what after what, like it's already planned.
Okay.
And it's not a one day thing like you ask me whom to call out and I just go out and call out someone.
Right.
Fortunately, Jason was there right next to the ring. And so it happened. I didn't have to play anything out of it. It just happened. And that is the call of whatever you can say. Like I believe in energies, but yeah, of course. And I think that was one of those signs my time is changing and I'm going big. So I just, and then at the same time, the commentator, he asked me the question and Jason was there. So why not?
Right, so Daniel, what was your takeaway? You were there in India for MFN 1. What was your takeaway from the event itself as well as the Srikant fight?
I think the show was pretty good. I think the show lived up to the hype. The entire energy at the event, the fight card, the entire show flow. I think it was a picture perfect moment for Indian MMA, at least at this level of promoting mixed martial arts in the country. I think the show was good. The fights were good. I for one enjoyed all of the fights, but I think the last fight was kind of like a Rocky kind of moment because Sandeep was being battered in the first round. He was getting battered, but most of the people watching the fight were kind of getting bored. They were like, what is this? This guy's on his back. That guy's trying to pummel him. Nothing's happening. And then whoa, as soon as he comes back, the bell rings and Sandeep comes out with that big punch and finishes the fight.
I think they were almost about to stop the match because he had a big cut in his face.
Right.
So and then
that's also a very interesting point. And after the fight, while we were walking out, Dr. Nadkarni, who's one of the senior MMA specialist doctors, he looked at me and he said, "That's me. I'm the one who's responsible for Sandeep winning that fight." I said, "Why do you say that, doc?" He says, "Well, when the referee called me in, everybody looked at Sandeep and said, he's over. But I looked at it and I saw that there was a superficial cut and he was able to go for another round unless he would have taken more damage in that round, which would have been a doctor stoppage." But he said, I let him go in and then he proved his worth.
Yeah.
Right, and just talking about Srikant as well as Jason Solomon probably fighting him next. Daniel, this is a conversation that we wanted to have previously. What did you think about his interesting comments? He made a few comments that were directed at SFL, few allegations that kind of came out. We also heard from Avi Mittal regarding those same allegations. What was your takeaway from that entire episode?
Hey Akhilesh, let me tell you one thing. This entire topic is so deep that you can have at least 3 or 4 part podcast because man, Indian MMA is now starting to get some masala. Okay, it's starting to get some interest. It's starting to get some fan engagement. It's starting to get some athlete engagement. But this specific fight, I feel, could be a landmark fight for Indian MMA. Number one, number one, the contender, Srikant. I call him the contender. I call him the challenger. I call him the man coming back for revenge.
For sure.
I call him the dark horse. I call him the underdog. I call him the guy who we all wrote off. We thought he's done. We thought he's done. We thought Srikant is gone. I was like, honestly, a couple of years ago, I was talking to Alan. I was like, hey, remember that guy Srikant? And you know why I'm saying this to you is because when Super Fight League first launched its reality show, I got hundreds and hundreds of profiles of fighters. One of the profiles was this guy. And when he sent his profile, you will not believe it. Srikant, do you remember that? He sent me pictures like Rampage Jackson. He had changed all around.
Yeah.
He was doing pull-ups with weights on. He was a totally different guy. But long story short, with all of everything that happened during those early years of Super Fight League, we thought that he's gone away. We thought that he's left MMA. But this guy was training and competing and building his profile, building his experience. And then he shows up at MFN, and I almost did not recognize the guy. And then he shoots in. I mean, come on, Akhilesh, do you remember that first kick that he threw to Rajinder? Rajinder catches that kick and just moves his hand this way, as if to say, what was that? Was that a kick? What was that? And then Srikant shoots in.
So one of the interesting things, so I was doing commentary for the entire event, and when Jason and we were talking about the entire fight, one thing that kind of came out was Srikant did not give any respect. You don't see that often, do you? At least in Indian MMA. When you get a fighter that has fought on international platform, you don't see someone not giving him respect. And I don't mean respect in the conventional sense. I mean respect in terms of not fearing what Rajinder brings to the cage.
Hey, let me tell you this. I understand a fighter looking at his eyes, okay? Srikant, I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean this with all honesty.
I understand.
Srikant has got crazy eyes. You know what that means? His eyes tell you, I'm gonna kill you. That's what his eyes say. And all the 3 days that he was in Mumbai and all of our officials working with him, his eyes said that. His eyes said, this is my time. I'm showing up in this cage and I am going to run through the competition. That is Srikant. I'll talk about Jason separately, but this is Srikant. This is Srikant. I think Indian mixed martial artists in his weight category need to watch out.
So Srikant, same question to you. As I said, it wasn't respect in the conventional sense. It was respect not being given in terms of you did not care about what Rajinder achieved outside India, did you?
So before that, I would like to talk to Daniel sir about, sir, do you remember I met you on December 2017 in IMA Submission Grappling Opens in Bombay?
Yes.
And then you asked me you basically couldn't recognize me. I lost around 25 kgs and that was the first time I met you after a long time. And then I said you over there watch me out, I'll be back. And I was waiting for the opportunity, and this was the opportunity. And coming back to the question, you asked me about Rajinder Singh Meena.
Yeah.
So what I thought about it is I've been seeing a lot of guys fighting after my initial losses in SFL back in 2013-14, I went back to the drawing board. I trained very hard. I trained with specific weight training coaches, specific jiu-jitsu coaches, specific kickboxing coaches, and then I participated in kickboxing national championships and professional kickboxing championships. So I tried to prove myself. I don't want to keep fight one way. I don't want to be the grappler in a fight. I don't want to be the kickboxer in a fight. I want to be the all-rounder guy. So I went back. I did wrestling, I did jiu-jitsu, I did kickboxing, and then Muay Thai too. And then I accumulated all my skills together, and then I came to gym and I talked to my coach Jitesh. Then I moved to Bangalore in 2015, and from then we have never looked back. We are going ahead everywhere and winning all the titles in the nation. And then we have been targeting Rajinder Singh Meena from last 2 years, and he was in the radar from last 2 years, and he was going on and off because he went to a different promotion, and I couldn't go into any other promotion. But then fortunately, one day I get a call from Mr. Alan Fernandez, like, are you ready to fight Rajinder Singh Meena? And I felt like I was always ready for it from last 2 years. And then that is it. And then we don't have to think about it. I said initial yes. And if you see my fight, I was wearing a tape in my shin.
Yeah.
So I got injured 2 weeks. Yeah. So I got injured 2 weeks ago, like before my fight. And then my coach is like, there are stitches and stuff in your shin. What are you going to do? I'm like, no matter what, I'm not cancelling it. No matter what, I'm not cancelling it. So I went to the docs before the fight. I taped it and I went to the fight. And we knew it was going to be a big finish, and it was not a surprise. So that's it.
So, got to ask you this though. As I said, Ramesh Solomon showed a lot of respect to you after the fight. He congratulated you, called you, you know, he told the fans basically about your record, about your background, winning national championships in boxing and different martial arts, styles. But more recently, Jason asked, who is Srikant? Because no one knew who Srikant was until now.
Look at the hypocrisy. Like he talks about me, and then yeah, exactly. Like he talks about me, he tells everyone about my records, and then he says like, okay, I'm ready for a fight. And then after a couple of weeks, he's like, who is Srikant? And he's saying different names. Like, look at the hypocrisy. I don't know what kind of pills he has been taking from a very long time. I don't know what he's on. Like he's losing his mind somewhere. Yeah, like, but then yeah, I'm up for the fight, and I challenged him. And he personally texted me on Messenger saying, bro, like I can read it, I guess. So he says like, do you think you are really good than me? Like, I'm like, yeah, of course I know. And then he's like, if you are already good than me, then why do you want to fight me? Is that a mentality of a fighter? Is that how a fighter talks? If someone challenges me, I'll be there anytime you call me. I'm ready for a fight. And then he's texting me in a compromised way, like, do you like, if you think you are better than me, why do you want to fight me? I don't know what is going in his mind. I think he's trying to find a way out to go to some other promotion. Maybe I'll ruin his ceremony by giving him a nice beat down. So I don't know what is going on, but then yeah, of course I am ready for a fight. Everyone knows I have been calling out from last 1 month, and I think Daniel sir agrees to it. I think MMA Matrix wants to do this fight. Like, of course, let's do this. I'm ready for it.
Shifts to Daniel now. Daniel, now the question passes to you. Srikant said, I am ready to fight Jason Ramesh Solomon. Daniel sir, can I get the fight? Obviously, GAMMAF is the global sanctioning body that's overseeing Matrix Fight Night. Obviously, this question should go to Alan Fernandez at the end of the day. But according to you, should it be done?
I'm sorry, I missed you for the last couple of seconds.
No, so my question to you was, do you think this fight should happen? The fight between Srikant, Jason Ramesh Solomon, does that, not maybe in the main event even, for the next edition of Matrix Fight Night, do you think that has to happen?
So here are my thoughts on the fight. Obviously, Alan is the matchmaker, and Matrix Fight Night are the ones, and their management are the ones who are going to decide and approve the bout. But I think that this fight has all the makings of fan engagement. I think this has all the makings of not just Indian MMA fans, but most of Asia, who would definitely stop, turn and watch. I think that this can definitely be one of the money fights for India. But I also think there might be something in the minds of the matchmakers who might want to give both fighters another fight before they pit them against each other. I mean, I'm just saying, I have no clue whether the fight is gonna happen right away or whether it's gonna happen a couple of months down the line. But I think it's a fantastic fight. If I had the power to call this fight, I would like to do it right away. But I'm just saying, the business of MMA usually involves, building hype a little bit more. It's like, for the business of MMA, if a fight's going to make somebody, I'm just going to use a weird analogy. If a fight's going to make somebody 100 rupees, If you make the fans wait for 3 months, its value goes up to 500 rupees. So, I don't know whether that's going to be the decision or not, but I think it is a very, very good making of an Indian MMA fight.
Right. So again, talking about Indian MMA. So let's just go to a different subject. This is a little touchy, obviously, but this is something that we have to talk about because it happened very recently. Srikant, I'm not sure if you've heard about Amitesh Chaubey.
Yeah, I know.
So Dan, coming back to you first. You obviously the pioneer of Indian MMA. You were there from the very beginning. You built it from the ground. What impact do you think this might have on the sport of MMA in India, particularly?
What was surprising about the entire Amitesh scenario was first that no one from Indian MMA had a clue about what happened until it came out in the news.
Right.
Just suddenly you look at it in the newspaper and you're like, what the heck was that? That was one of the craziest things. I for one, I have mixed emotions. So I know that you're aware, many people are aware that I wear different hats.
Correct.
So one, as an MMA fan, I'm really sad to see Amitesh go. I don't know whether there's any scope for him to come back from this or what's going to be his future, but I'm really sad about this entire issue. What I also feel is anger. I'm really angry about why this happened. What were the situations that led him to even think of this stupid thing for him to do? I thought everything was working really well for him. He had made a name for himself, in a particular spectrum of Indian films. I think it was the Bhojpuri film scene that he was doing pretty well. He had got some sort of celebrity status among the Bhojpuri films. So I'm really angry at why this actually happened. If I had to meet Amitesh right now, Amitesh, अगर तुझे अभी मिलता था ना, मैं तुझे तेरे मुंह पे 2 थप्पड़ मार के तेरे को बोलता था, क्या पागल है कि तू कि ऐसा काम किया तूने? That's what I would say. As a mentor of Amitesh, as a father figure, I would say, what the heck were you thinking when you did that? That's my reaction. But then, as a pastor and as a mentor, my heart goes out to him. If I had the opportunity, I would like to go to meet him right now. I would like to go to meet him and say, what happened? Why is this? Is there something that we can do to try and fix the situation? Because, I understand that the law is going to take its course. Nobody is above the law.
Correct.
But, maybe as a family member or as a pastor or, somebody with heart, I would feel for him.
That's interesting. What also is mind-boggling is that when we're talking about Indian MMA, one can also make the case for the fact that he's the most popular Indian MMA fighter just because his video of Jason Solomon, his name comes up again, knockout in 9 seconds, went viral. Millions of people watched it. Ozyman Reviews reviewed it. It was a global phenomenon. So one could also make the case for the fact that he was arguably one of the biggest MMA fighters in India. So I just don't see how that makes any sense. Srikant, so give your take on that situation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just give us your thoughts.
So Amitesh is like one of my very closest friends back in camp.
Right.
So we used to share the room and we used to train together and stuff. And we're still good friends. But then I don't know what exactly is going on right now in his life, because what I heard is like he got jailed for kidnapping someone for ransom.
Correct.
And I don't know what is if it is true or not, or he might be have we don't even know what is basically the case. But then what I know about Amitesh is like he is a very nice guy, and then he is the first one, there is a story behind it, he is the first one who called me from Lucknow saying me do you want to fight Jason Solomon in Brave? That was happening in December. Okay. And as soon as he called me, he's like, I will touch you, I will get you touch with a manager from Delhi, so maybe you can work this out. So I said okay, fine, no problem, say him to give me a call, then we can work it out. And that was the last time I heard from Amitesh, and that was the last time I heard from the manager from Delhi. I don't know exactly who he was. And Jason Ramesh fight never happened in Brave. And I've been calling few guys like, what happened? Like, did he deny it or what? Like, why don't you say it in the face? Like, why are people backing up and all? Then they got a new guy for him to fight in Brave, and eventually we find out like some dog bite him or something happened, and he was out of the fight. So yeah, and that was so when like Jason was in the radar too from last year, 1 year I guess. And yeah, why not? Like everyone says he fights good, everyone thinks he fights good, and everyone feels like he's the best in the country. Like if you ask me, if you say someone is the best in the country, and as a contender, as a fighter, as an underdog, of course I will challenge the best in the country. What's wrong? I challenged him, and I believe this fight should happen. Like it really doesn't matter if it happens now, it happens later, or whatever it is. Give me a fight. I'm really hungry to step over someone and go forward. Like if he's not ready to fight, it's his loss. I'm ready to fight. Give me a fight. I'll fight anyone. No problem.
Right. So Dan, just wrapping things up. I don't know, Srikant, if you watched UFC 236 a couple of days ago. You did.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I want to end things on a good note. Obviously, we talked about some heavy subjects that are going to impact Indian MMA, that have already impacted Indian MMA. So Dan, firstly, I want to talk to you about the main event and the co-main event. In a holistic perspective, on a bigger scale of things, what did you think about the entire event, and in particular the two main fights?
So I'd like to comment about that, and if you don't mind, I'd like to also comment a little bit about Jason, unless you want to save this up for another podcast. We
have started. This is the first episode. We have tons of more episodes to come. But again, go ahead. If you want to talk about
good.
Jason, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just jump in a little bit about Jason. I know Jason for a very, very long time. I think the first time I got reached out from Jason while he was in Delhi was about like 2009, 2010, a really long time ago. And at that time, what I felt was he was a guy who had a challenging mindset. He was actually very cocky in that email, and he wanted to come and he wanted to test the Tigers gym fighters. That was his email. He actually wanted to come and test us. And then he shows up at Tigers gym, and all of our guys, in those days we had like, Bharat Kandare and, Chaitanya, and all these guys were training together. It was like, that was one of the, the earliest batch of the Tigers gym fighters. All of them training together. It was Alan, it was Jitendra Khare, it was myself. All of us were, working together with all these guys. And while we were training, so Jason walks in. And Jason walks in with his flamboyant style, and we had some rap music on, and so he walks in like this, and he's dancing and everything, and we're like, who is this joker? This clown? That's how everybody looks at him. And so here's the story. So we do something like a welcome to Tigers gym ceremony. Any new fighter, we give him a welcome. What we do is we put one fighter in the middle, and all the fighters stand around, and he'll spar with everybody in a different style. First round he'll go 30 seconds grappling. Seconds he'll go kickboxing. Third round he'll just do submissions. So we did that, and Bharat Kandare threw Jason over his head. Whoop! He literally Surjay just lit him up with punches all over the place. So all the guys they pretty much made a quick work of Jason the first time that he came to Tigers gym. At the end of it, he became a believer, because he was one of those guys who thought that this Tigers gym is just some wannabe gym. They don't have anything, they don't have real fighters. But he came in, he showed up, he saw what we had, and then that changed his mind. And then he became a fan. Then he was like, hey Dan, I think I want to do this seriously. I think I really want to train. I really want to build my profile. That's how he started training. So he was humbled by that experience, but he took a lot of knowledge from that experience. He built himself up. He trained hard. He came into the camp. He trained along with Srikant and many of the earlier fighters. He worked his way up the ranks, and now I think he's become this guy who understands the scene pretty well. So what he's trying to do, what Jason is trying to do, which most people might not recognize, is he's trying to build a hype for this fight. He's trying to get as much as attention from everybody, by bringing up a controversial subject, by talking about this and that and everything else, by avoiding Srikant and switching subjects. He's trying to build an audience. But I think he might be also treading on some dangerous ground, because he said a lot of controversial things, which we might want to discuss later. But yeah, I think he is treading on some dangerous ground by switching subjects a little bit too far sometimes. So Jason, watch out, man. So I don't know how far that's gonna go, but I think both these guys have a challenger mindset. I think Jason is the current guy. Maybe he hasn't fought in a little while, but he's the current guy who's got the name. I think Srikant is walking in. So Srikant is walking in and wants to dethrone him. I would love to watch that fight. I would definitely not like to judge it. I would definitely not like to referee it. I would like to sit and enjoy this fight for sure. So that's my take on Jason. And lastly, whereas UFC 236 is concerned, I did not get to watch the entire event, but I did watch one fight that was interesting to me, and that was Gastelum versus Adesanya. I thought that fight should have been main event. That was an amazing fight. Round number 1, Gastelum, he literally puts on a boxing for MMA clinic against Adesanya. Round number 3, I think he almost put away Adesanya with that head kick. And then round number 5, Adesanya comes out and, just literally shows who he is with some fantastic combinations of, striking for MMA. He tried to put on a triangle, that didn't work, but I think he almost finished Gastelum. I think, Mark Goddard was almost a little too lenient with him in those last 20 seconds. But yeah, that was an amazing fight. I really enjoyed that fight.
True. I mean, as you said, Gastelum, the one thing that's very interesting is he used his left jab and feints, right jab and feints to set up his left hand. So one thing that also is kind of synonymous with Gastelum fights is the fact that whenever he gets close to finishing someone with strikes, he goes for a takedown, and he did the same with Adesanya in the third round, if I remember correctly. He he lit him up, then for whatever reason, shot on Adesanya. He had him, as you said, pedaling back. He was hurt. It was just a matter of putting on more pressure, and then he changed levels, shot in. But yeah, I want to get Srikant's perspective on this card as well.
I believe the Gastelum and Adesanya fight was really good. But the thing is, like you said, he tried to switch to takedowns more than standing and trading. I think it's maybe because he thinks he was gassing out. If he's striking more enough, maybe he thinks like Israel's head movement is really good, and he might not just knock him out, and in the process of trying and doing so, he might get gas out. And he was trying for a takedown. He might have tried a little bit more or efficiently. He could have got a takedown, because we know Kevin is a wrestler and Adesanya is not a wrestler. Maybe he's doing jiu-jitsu, but then that wrestling pedigree comes after years of practice, maybe 10 years, 15 years of practice, and the whole pedigree comes. So there will be a difference in Adesanya wrestling from 15, 20 years and this guy wrestling from 5 years. So of course, but then I didn't think he tried hard enough to take him down, which Poirier was doing in his fight. Right. And his corner is shouting, take him down, and is listening to his corner all the time, and maybe he tried so hard and so much, and then maybe that was one of the reasons why Holloway got tired towards the end, and this guy is still throwing bombs after bombs after bombs. But then all the 4 fighters, they showed a lot of heart, and that is what fighting is all about. I think all the 4 of them got
fight of the night bonuses, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the first time they got it, 4 fighters getting in one fight. And it was an amazing fight. And of course, like, if this fight happens, mine and Jason's fight, I don't know, like, I think it's going to be quick and not that big of a challenge. So yeah, maybe MFN can start searching for a bigger fight, and I'm ready for it. No problem.
Good. So what we can do over the next few weeks sometime is probably get Alan Fernandez. Mr. Alan Fernandez, this is a call out for you. Probably get Alan Fernandez on the show and sort things out.
No problem.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Srikant, for joining us. Daniel, It's the first episode of the Indian Invasion podcast. I'm really stoked to see where this goes. Thank you, Srikant, once again.
Goes all the way up.
Absolutely. Let's see. As I said, let's bring Aaron Fernandez on the show and kind of figure things out and see if the fight will happen. Saying that, thank you to the fans for tuning in. Tune in next week, same day, for the second episode of the Indian Invasion podcast. With that said, thank you. Good day.